So if we begin with a decimal and we want to convert to a percent, we can do that in one of two ways. We can either move the decimal 2 places to the right, or we can multiply the decimal by 100. Let's look at some examples. So my first example, I have the decimal 0.13, and we want to convert it to a percent. So we have two options. One option is that we're going to take this decimal place and move it 2 places to the right. So if we do that, the decimal now comes after the 13. And our answer becomes 13%. Your other option is to take that decimal and multiply it by 100 using your calculator. If you do that, you will also get 13%. All right, let's look at our next one. So we have 1.48. If we're going to move the decimal 2 places to the right, then the decimal is now going to become after the 8. And so our answer would be 148%, 148%. Now again, if you would prefer to use your calculator, you would take that 1.48 and you would multiply by 100, and that will also give you the same answer. Okay, our next one, 32.7, and we're going to need to move that decimal 2 places to the right. Now, the problem that we run into is I can move it 1 place, but when I go to move it a second place, remember that you're going to have to put a 0 right here to sort of hold that place. And so that decimal is going to now go after that 0. And so our answer is going to look like 3270%. All right, so in other words, 3,270%. And again, if you would prefer to do it using the other method, then you would take that 32.7 and you would multiply by 100 on your calculator and you'll get the same answer. All right, our next example, 0.0005, and we're going to move that decimal 2 places to the right to convert it to a percent. And so the decimal will now sit in between this second and this third 0 right here. And so our answer is going to look like 0.05%. Now you can put those zeros in the front if you would like to, and oftentimes we'll see 1 0 sitting here, or you can leave that off, either way. All right, and again, if you would like to do it by the other method, you would take your calculator and you would put in 0.0005, and then you would multiply that by 100. And again, you can add that 0 on the front or not, either way. All right, our last example is a little bit different because they're giving us the problem as a fraction instead of as a decimal. So the first thing that you need to do is on your calculator, you need to actually divide that out so that you get a decimal. So if you will type in on your calculator, we're going to type in 7 and press the divided key and 4. And if you'll do that on your calculator, the calculator is going to give you a decimal value of 1.75. Now, you want to convert that decimal to a percent. So you would need to take that decimal place and move it 2 places to the right. And so that would give you as your final answer 175%, 175%. Or again, you can take that decimal value of 1.75 and then multiply by 100 if you would rather do it that way. All right, so now we want to look at the other direction. So if we have a percent, we want to convert it to a decimal. Again, you have 2 options. You can move the decimal 2 places to the left, or you can divide the decimal by 100. So let's look at a few examples of that. All right, so our first example is 77%. All right, so move the decimal 2 places to the left. And you might be asking yourself, well, where is the decimal? If we don't see a decimal, the assumption is that the decimal is sitting at the end of the number. So our decimal is right here. Okay, and then we're going to move it 2 places to the left. So we're going to come in and go 1 place and 2 places. And so our decimal is going to sit in front of the 77. Now, if you prefer the other method, then what you would be doing is you would go to your calculator and you would type in the 77 and you would press your divided by key and you would divide by 100 and that will give you the same answer. Okay, what about 3.9%? We're moving that decimal 2 places to the left, so that's 1 place. And then we've got to move it a 2nd place. So remember that when we do that, we have to add in a 0 to hold that extra place. And so our answer will look like 0.039. Again, if you'd prefer to do it on your calculator, you're going to take 3.9 and you are going to press your divided by key and then divide by 100. And you'll get the same answer. Okay, what about 273? Where's your decimal place? Again, it's sitting here if we don't see it at the end. We're going to move it 1, 2, and it'll be between the 2 and the 7. All right, or if you're doing it by the other method, you're going to enter 273 into your calculator and then divide by 100. All right, what about 84.95%? Move the decimal 2 places to the left. It'll start in front of the 8. Or if you want to use your calculator, you're going to say 84.95. That's the original number. And then we're going to divide by 100 on your calculator. You can get the same answer that way. All right, and finally 61.8, we'll move it 2 places to the left, putting the decimal in the front. So our answer will be 0.618. Or if you're using your calculator and you want to divide by 100, you can type it in like this and get the same answer.